excited to share with you, and I believe it's an important conversation because for many of us who are part of the African diaspora, we are not aware of much of the history and the relevance as it pertains to us in America, in Canada, in the UK, in the Caribbean, in Brazil, and in other parts of the world. And so today I have the privilege of speaking to King Koishan, and we're going to learn his story and learn about his tribe, his culture, the history, and why it is so relevant to the African diaspora and so many of us who are part of this community, this global African community. So King, I want to thank you for joining me, and I just want you to share your story and why you're here on these grounds and the importance for your tribe, but also for the rest of us who are part of the African diaspora.
Yes, good day everyone. Greetings. In my language I would greet you Kaiches, meaning hello. Now, it is important for everyone as Africans to know your true identity. But what has happened to the First Nation of South Africa? Their identity has been distorted, and at this moment their identity has been basically under threat. Why has this happened? When we look back in South Africa, we're talking about before BC. That means before the birth of Jesus Christ. The first people that roamed on the southern part of Africa were the Khoisan people, also known by the books as Hottentot and Bushman people. These people had a lifestyle. Their lifestyle consists of hunting and also moving around various places in the country. As we've been living alone at that point in time, it was something that we were doing when weather starts changing. We moved around, and we moved around with animals, because most of the time when you think about animals, they also move around, considering the different weather conditions. So for us was important that wherever we had stayed for a period of time and we start moving, we would draw our rock arts. These rock arts are not drawn by any other person, but it is the one that leads the tribe. It is called the shamans. Now, when one looked at the rock arts and maybe call up some archaeologists to do some in-depth research on the rock arts, you would find that the rock arts are going back more than 400,000 years back. Now, these rock arts are drawn by the Khoi and the San people. Now, when we were here alone, every one of our tribes, we had different tribes across the country. Now, our first encounter was with the Portuguese that came here. When we looked at the history of the Portuguese, you always hear their words would be, they always discover. Now, when they came to the southern part, they also said they discover. But then they saw us. In their books, they wrote about us as the people, sometimes also call us little people. They would also talk about us as people that are not close to human beings. And this was the reason why they make it their utmost mission to make us or alienate us from who we truly are. They came here as a friendly gesture. That is what all colonists do. They come in, they shake hands. But when we shake the hands, we could feel the hatred inside their hearts. But as we are people that is always kind, that never thinks bad about other people, we were trading a lot with them. And then some of them in the 1500s starts taking our women and children. This gentleman was by the name of Francisco de Almeida. Now he came here, and for him, He saw the Hottentot, he saw the Bushman people, and he wanted to take our children and our women, to take them abroad, to be used as slaves, or also maybe just to use as maids inside the house to work for them. But this was seen, and then we start attacking them. Francisco de Almeida and his crew and a lot of our people lost their lives. This was a sad part for us, because we never are people that are fighting. The only time that we would fight is when somebody does something to our children as well as our women. So that's why we had to react. And what happened afterwards was they started writing back about us. Whenever they said that the people living on the southern part, these people are cannibals, and people should stay away from the southern part of Africa. They also said that these people are like a plague. So later on, they came, and under leadership of Jan van Riebeck, which is also told in the stories, that he came 1652. But his first encounter was 1648 when he came here. Later on, he went back, and then when he returned in 1652, his mission was the VOC. For the VOC, Africa, or the southern part, was a nice place because most of the ships would come from Europe and then stop at the Cape Point, and then from there they move up towards India to get spices. So the Cape Point was an ideal place for them to set up a place for ships to just refreshen up and get fresh water and meat. But there was only one meat that they could get. It's the meat from the indigenous people, the natives of the land, the Hottentot and the Bushmen. So then they would, lots of times, they set up commandos and just go on and just taking our animals. This was not seen as very kind to us, because we always saw that whatever we've got, we would always share it with everyone. They then later on did the worst thing of ever. They start writing laws against us. Now, how can any human being that comes to a place where this is not his native land, he comes and he writes laws to the people that has been there? So the first law they wrote about us was that they said that our language, which is formed a lot of cliques, as I said, greeting, hi ches, mati kokokai, hi hat kokokai, meaning how did you sleep? Now that is a lot of cliques. Now for the colonists, they didn't understand, so they needed to make sure that they alienate these people from their language. So the law they put on us was, they made a law that they abolished our language. They said that if we speak the language, they would cut the breast of the woman. And for the men, they would make sure cutting their testicles. Sometimes they would even go to that extent by burying us alive, and even at the worst conditions, hang us and even chop our heads off. This for them was not something that they feel sad about, because they, in their books, they always write about us as we are closer to animals. So when they did these things, they are saying, well, we are doing this to animals. It's not human beings. We were really, this stirred fear in our people. And we became to sort of, what we did amongst ourselves was that when we talked about our language, we would use it only amongst ourselves and not when there's other people, the colonists are around. Then later on, these colonists, the Jan van Riebecks, the Willem Adrian van der Stel and Simon van der Stel. Now Jan van Riebeck even, he welcomed Simon van der Stel to come and plant vineyards. When you looked at the Western Cape in South Africa, the majority of the vast area is winelands. It's the winelands from Simon van der Stel and Willem Adrian van der Stel. Now, Jan van Riebeeck just gave those people land without consulting with the natives. Now, these people had a mission. Their mission was to break the natives, to break us, and to make us feel or see that we are no more part of the human species. They then passed another law on us. In this law, in the late 1700s, the law was that they then said that in the law they said and call us, we are plague. So in order for them, they need to get rid of the plague. So they write a hunting law that permits them to hunt us the same way as you hunt the springbok, the same way as you hunt the kudu. They then intensified this permit by saying that if you bring us the head of a Hottentot and a Bushman, we would give you pieces of land. So while they were chasing us on their horses, shooting us, when they come closer to us, they would chop our heads off. These heads, they took and show it to the magistrate. The magistrate, the more heads you give, the bigger the land will be given from the magistrate. This was the time where we had to flee inside caves. We had to disappear because it was the time that our lives are threatened. They then later on, they caught us, and some of them put us through a court system. Now, how can you, as a native, have a court case against a colonist and the one that judged you is a colonist? So obviously we never won all these cases. So what they would do to us was, when we were found guilty, most of the time, they would put us in a gallows, and then they would whip us, our back with the whip. The tip of the whip is wire that is curled. So this would split the back side open. And what they would do just as a joke, they would just rub in some salt and just throw us outside just to die in the sun. For them, this was nothing. This is done to an animal. And when they wanted to basically have fun, they would tie our hands and tie our feet with rope, and they would have horses running different ways. This ripped our bodies apart. All this was done while the other Hottentot and Bushmen were looking at it. And this is what they would say: this is what's going to happen to you if you go against us. That was the worst and saddest time of our lives. It was a time where we had only one option. We had to disappear once again, disappear into caves, and they would look for us but couldn't find us. They then later on sent up commandos. These commandos would go around our villages where our people were still, and they would take the woman and rape the woman. These women would have then children from these different colonists, white people, Germans, Irish, Sindalena, all these people. Our women would have children with them. But then what some of them would do is, if a woman is pregnant, and they would use any form of sharp object, knife, and just cut a stomach open and just pull the baby out of her stomach. This was nothing to them. Most of our women died because of this. And the generation that was formed later on, because of these atrocities that they have done, they then in apartheid labeled the children as well as the Hottentot and Bushman, women and men, they reclassified us as colored people. So the colored you see in South Africa, the colored is the offspring of the Hottentot and the Bushmen, the Khoi and the San people. Now, what makes this colored significant is that beside the fact that the Hottentot and the Bushmen are the first people of South Africa, they are also the first humankind, meaning that the strain of Homo sapiens, which is humankind, the first strain is found in the Hottentot and the Bushmen, making the Hottentot and the Bushmen a tribe or a nation that everyone across the world have part and parcel of their DNA. But sadly, these people are forgotten. These people are only in the books of the history. When you look at the curriculum of South Africa from grade 5, you'll find that in the history they talk about the first people are the Khoi and the San people. They just tell a short story about us. Story of being hunters, story of being nomadic people. And then the story just stops there. That is why a lot of people, when they come to the Union building, where we as the First Nation have been here for just over 2.5 years, why have we come to this place? Why have we come to the highest point of government? The reason for this was simply to say to government that we need to be recognized as the first people of South Africa, the first citizens of this land. We need to be our language, which is on the coat of arms of South African coat of arms. The language needs to be official. Now, how sad is it that the language of the native people, the first people of the southern part of Africa, their language is not official language to this country. But there are already 12 languages in South Africa. But the first language is not part of it. The third demand that we've given to government was that the return of our ancestral land. Now, most of the people, when they talk about ancestral land or when they talk about land in South Africa, they would say land expropriation without compensation. This is a new law that has put his head up in South Africa. It is a law where the government is saying we will take land from the white farmers and we will take the land and give it to the black people. But then once again, they are doing the same thing that the Apartheid government has done and even the colonials has done. They simply forget about the native people, the Hottentot, the Bushmen, the Khoi and the San people. They forgot about us and not include us in what they call black people. In America and all across countries outside South Africa, when they talk about South Africa, they talk about the land where black and white is. They don't talk about us. They don't talk about the Hottentot. They don't talk about the Bushmen. They don't talk about the native people in South Africa. It was so sad when we went to Italy in 2019 and we had to find out that when the people saw us, the Aboriginal, the native people of South Africa, they call us Zulus. They thought we are Zulus. And we had to explain to them that the Zulus are just as any other African tribe that just came to the southern part of Africa. The Zulus are not the indigenous people of South Africa. They are not the natives of South Africa. They are natives from where they come from, not to South Africa. It is sad that the story of us as the First Nation are not being told. It is sad that the First Nation to South Africa has to go so low that they had to go and sleep in tents at the key point of government. And what is government doing about it? They simply do the same thing as the Apartheid has done, and once again the colonists have done. They simply forget about us. Because during this 2.5 years that we've been here, we have no engagement with government. Because the demands that we've given to them was simply recognition as the first nation of South Africa, our language to be official, the return of our ancestral land, and the removal of the colored word. As I said, the colored word is a word that is used now in South Africa that makes the native people to be feel not part of South Africa because of the laws of affirmative action and BEE, and so the laws goes on and on, still depriving the native people of justice. Now, we as the native people of South Africa, the Aboriginal people of South Africa, we are still in the books of government called colors. Because when we fill in documents, where we had to fill in who we are, in South Africa it's the Z83 form. So when you fill in the Z83 form, there's a block that greets you. The block says colored. And we as the natives were forced to use that word. But then in 1991, the word colored and the Kaffir word got abolished. Yes, also the black people were also used a derogative term on them, which was the Kaffir word. So the Kaffir word and the colored word got abolished in 1991. Now the sad reality was that when the black people heard about this, then they went around across the country and told the black people that if somebody calls you a Kaffir, you should go to the police station and make a case, because there's no such word as Kaffir. It has been abolished. Now sadly, instead of doing the same thing to the colored people, they went to the colored people and asked them, what must we call you? What must we call you? Now obviously, as any humankind, if you grew up knowing colored, if your mother is colored, if your father is colored, and colored is the only word you know, and somebody asks you, what must we call you? The obvious would be, call me colored. Because they did not know that the word was abolished. The same with the Kaffir word. So they then easily said, no, call us colored. They went on from province to province. When they went to the Northern Cape, they asked the people, what must we call you? They said, call us Korana, call us Naba, call us Griqua, call us Sand Bushman, but do not call us colored. Yet they did not listen to the people, the Aboriginal people, the natives of the land. They went on and calling us colored. Now it is said that because of this, we find ourselves that our people across South Africa, the ones that still labeled as colored people or still call themselves colored, they are so much happy about this word because they never knew that this word was abolished in 1991. And when we ask government a budget so that we can go to the so-called colored communities and talk to our people about their culture, about their heritage, about their true identity, the government simply says, no, we're not going to do it. We had two court cases against government regarding this issue of calling us colored. One was even done by their own department, human rights. Their own department of government was putting government to a task to remove the colored word. And the government simply says through the court, we will not remove the colored word. Now, how worse can that be? When we are asking government regarding these 4 issues, this is what they say to us. On the first issue of recognition as the first nation of South Africa, there's still a parliamentary process that needs to go through. On the second issue of our language to be official, they will make it only official in one province in the Northern Cape. And on the third issue of our ancestral land, they said that they will have a Khoisan traditional leadership bill that will deal with the issue. Well, the bill has been signed by the government. It's now an act. And what does the act say? The act say you, as the Aboriginal people, the natives, are officially recognized as Khoisan people. But they simply forget the most important thing. That is why we are here. We are not saying don't recognize us as Khoisan people. No, we are saying recognize us as the first nation of South Africa, the Aboriginal people, the natives of this land. That is what we are asking. So for a lot of people, when they looked at us at the Union building, they would say, why are these people still here? They've been recognized. People, we've never been recognized. Government is simply using that platform to get rid of us here at the Union building and to make us pack up and leave. And on the last issue of the removal of the colored word, in South Africa, 2021 is the year of the census. Census meaning that they would count the people in South Africa as in their tribes, Xhosa, Zulu, Venda, white, colored, and so forth. So what government has done with the fourth issue, they said that they will have a form that will put the block for Khoisan and a block for color. And the people must decide if they want to choose the Khoisan block or the colored block. Now, I don't know. I really don't know. How low can government go? Because you cannot ask a colored to choose now Khoisan if he doesn't know that's who he is. You can't expect a colored from Eldos, Westbury, Yesterfield, here in Yesterus. You cannot expect that person to fill in the block of Khoi and San, Khoisan, Hottentot, Bushman if he doesn't know that is who he is. Because all his life he grew up as colored. Now it is sad that the government was so worse that when the president of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, when he got inaugurated as the president of this country, government lied to the rest of South Africa, saying that the inauguration of the president was shifted to Loftus because of budget. Now, how low can you go? This is your building at the Union building. To spend money at Loftus will be much more, and they talk about budget. The simple reason was we, the First Nation, Khoi and San, Hottentot, Bushman, we are at the Union building, and it would not be a nice picture for the inauguration to be seen us here at the Union building, and then BBC, CNN, all those people would ask, who are these people? What are they doing here? Those would have been the dirty laundry of South African government that they didn't want to expose. So they lied to all in South Africa, even abroad, that the inauguration was shifted because of the budget. Now, the last thing, what was so sad in 2017, when we first came here, we spent at the Union building 24 days. Now, what was said about the 24 days? We had to intensify our protest by went on a hunger strike. So the time that the deputy president, then now President Cyril Ramaphosa, when he came and received the memorandum on Christmas Eve, we were already 17 days without food. And the reason why he did this was simply that we've given this government an ultimatum. We said to this government, because we were on a hunger strike, we said to them, if they've got two options. One option is they come and receive the memorandum. The second one would be that if they do not accept the memorandum, they would be the ones that would carry dead bodies up to the Union border, because we were prepared to die for this cause. And the sad reality is, when Cyril Ramaphosa came down and sat at the chair signing the memorandum, his words were, "It is a pity that he is the deputy president. If he was the president, he would have done more. Now he is the president and he has done absolutely nothing." This is sad. And the question that everybody is asking, how long are you prepared to wait? Well, we are prepared to be here at the Union building. Either they come and resolve the 4 issues and implement it, or we would die here at the Union building. This position would be very sad for South African government, because the South Africans, or everyone that thought that the ANC government that promised us a better life for all, everyone thought that this is a caring government. So if we hear another 5 or 10 years, this government, this ANC government, will no more be governing this country, because every citizen in South Africa will see how bad South African people have been treated or will be treated. We, as the first, are treated this way. So my last word to everyone that hears about this or see this video, we as the first people of South Africa, not just as the first people, but the first Aboriginal people in the world, we are saying to all Aboriginal people across your country, it is now time that you, as indigenous people to your country, stand up and fight with the First Nation of South Africa. Stand up and be part of the support of South Africa's First Nation. And everyone else that knows what the First Nation has done to them, by showing them kindness, by even giving them a place to stay. To all of you, it is now your time to support the First Nation. How can you support it? By keeping our story alive, but also to come and show kindness to the First Nation at the Union building. This by means of giving us donations or even bringing some food stuff. Because the only way that we survive at the Union building is because of the kindness of all South Africans, even those that come abroad and saw us and spent time with us. And through that, they also contributed being part of those good Samaritans. It is sad that we have to continue another year staying here at the Union building. It is sad that we also have a 14-year-old child. It would be sad that he has to continue his school term here and even has to do his matric from the Union building. That would be sad, because it is not fair for any child to be living in this condition, staying in a tent, coming from school, have to do your homework in this condition. I wouldn't say this is fair. So please, show kindness to us. Share this. as much as you can and even contribute to us. We have got a WhatsApp number. It's +27 64 101 2160. And our Facebook page is Khoisan at Union Building. You can also contact us via our website www.firstnation.org.za. This is the voice of the First Nation of South Africa, reaching out not just to South Africans, but to everyone across the world. Kei Katkats, in our language, thank you very much.
King, I want to thank you for sharing your eloquent words. As I was listening to you, I was getting a history lesson, but it paralleled much of our story in America. As you were describing the brutalities of the colonizers, and when you were talking about the whippings and the splitting of the backs, and just the brutality, it resonated because that's much of what our ancestors went through. But the way we're told in America is that we're the only ones who went through the trauma. We're the only ones who went through the Middle Passage. We're the only ones who suffered as a result of slavery. And as I've been coming to the continent and learning about the different stories and learning how slavery in essence was happening here. It wasn't called slavery. They would just come and take the land. And as you were talking about the laws being created, how can someone create a law in a land that they don't even own? But that's what was happening here. But it was happening in what we know as America. And as far as the term when you talked about the colored people and how the colonizer would come and take the women and rape them and have the children, we went through the same thing. And that whole identity challenge is much of the reason why you see many of us coming to Africa and willing to learn. And that's why I thought your story is in the story of the Khoisan people is so important, because what it does is it helps us in America and other parts of the African diaspora understand that we're not alone. And we all have been dealing with the effects of colonization, the lies, the thefts, the murders, the rapes, and then the whitewashing of everything to act as if it didn't happen. And then when you talked about how in the history books, there's just a small mention of the Khoisan people, but yet they make it seem as if they discovered. How can you discover something that's already here with people who are already here? Maybe you discover for yourself, but for the rest of the world, creating this narrative and creating this history centered around their worldview is, like you said, it's unfair. And so as you're here at the Union Building and you're taking this stance, I believe it's important for the rest of the world to understand the global fight that we have been dealing with. And as you so eloquently stated and shared, what my hope is that for those who have watched this, that you would take the time to support and to learn more about the Khoisan story. And if you come to South Africa, you come here to Pretoria, you come to the Union Building, and you come and you see King, and you sit down and you learn more about the story. But this is what we need to do. Education. I always say proper education is how we break down the walls of misinformation, how we tear down the lies, the generational lies over the past 500 years that we know as far as European colonization has taken place. A lot of us are deceived into thinking that it's over because now we have amenities, and we in many ways we have been colonized and desensitized and conditioned to think that everything is okay. But until the equity has been shared, until the restitution has been paid, until we're fighting for reparations in America, and what the Khoisan people are saying here is, give us our land, the land that was stolen. Give us back what is rightfully ours. And so that's what you see happening here at the Union Building. So again, King, I want to thank you for sharing, and we're going to get this message out, and I'm sure that it will touch someone, and the contributions will continue to come in. And as I come back to South Africa, and as I bring people to South Africa, I'm going to bring them here to meet you And so they can one, meet you in person, but then you can tell the story and the progress, and we'll continue to share. And whoever sees this, who may have the power to be able to, whether it's financial, whether it's by words of encouragement, whether it's on a governmental level, whatever level you might be on, to be able to help, that is how we begin to correct the many injustices that have taken place over the past 500 years. So again, thank you, King, and I thank everyone for watching.